Welcome to the next session of the pharmacology discussions. And in succession to the previous video, what I have uploaded on the beta-lactam antibiotics, as I have already said in the previous video, that the next video will be basically focusing upon the mechanism of action of the beta-lactam antibiotics. So students, I have tried my level best and I have tried to make the mechanism of action of the beta-lactam antibiotics much simpler by just making it in the form of a flowchart. So students, I have summarized the entire mechanism with the help of 6-7 points. So students, beginning with the topic. So students, do remember that the beta-lactam antibiotics, they are going to elicit their mechanism of action by inhibiting the cell wall of the cell wall synthesis of the bacterial cell. So students, beginning with the first point, so the beta-lactam antibiotics, they act by inhibiting the bacterial cell wall synthesis. So moving on to the next. So students, as you might be knowing, that the cell wall is that structure which is going to impart rigidity and strength to that cell. So the rigidity and the shape of the cell is maintained by the cell wall. So a rigid cell wall is responsible for the protection of the bacteria from the lysis. So a rigid cell wall will help the bacterial cell to prevent its lysis by any kind of a degradation. Moving on to the third point. So the bacterial cell wall, as you might be knowing, that the important or the chief constituent, what is responsible for the synthesis of the bacterial cell wall, it is by the peptidoglycan. So students, the peptidoglycan is the chief chemical compound which is responsible for the synthesis of the bacterial cell wall. Moving on to the next point, that this peptidoglycan, it can be split into two words. Then one is the glycan chains and the other is the peptide chains. So the entire chemical compound, that is the peptidoglycan, is made basically of the chains of the glycan chains and the peptide chains, which are cross-linked to each other. So students, these in peptidoglycan, the glycan chains and the peptide chains, they are cross-linked. Moving on to the next point, and this cross-linking between the glycan chains and the peptide chain, this cross-linking is imparting the bacterial cell wall its strength. So the bacterial cell wall derives its strength by the cross-linking of the glycan and the peptide chain. Moving on to the next point, that this cross-linking is going to provide the strength to the bacterial cell wall. And students, do remember the synthesis of this peptidoglycan cell wall, that is, the synthesis of this peptidoglycan requires an enzyme called as the transpeptidase enzyme. So this is the chief or the key enzyme what is responsible for the cross-linking of the glycan and the peptide chains of the peptidoglycan. So now moving on to the chief point, that is the striking point where the beta-lactam antibiotics are going to elicit their action on the bacteria, that is the beta-lactam antibiotics, they are going to inhibit this particular transpeptidase enzyme. So the transpeptidase enzyme, the beta-lactam antibiotics, they are going to inhibit it, leading to there is an inhibition of the synthesis of the peptidoglycan, which is the chief constituent of the bacterial cell wall, and ultimately the bacteria what will be formed after multiplication, they will have a cell wall which the bacteria what will be multiplied, what will be formed after it, they will be deficient in cell wall. That is, the newly multiplied bacteria will be lacking, will be devoid of a cell wall, and ultimately this will lead to the lysis of the bacterial cell. So students, In this way, in the form of a flowchart or simple point wise, I have tried my level best to simplify the mechanism of action of the beta-lactam antibiotics. So students, if you do like my video, give this video a thumbs up. If you do have any doubts or queries, don't forget to comment in the comment section. And students, if you do like my video, don't forget to subscribe my channel and share amongst your friends. Thank you for watching.